It's a tragic, senseless loss. It didn't need to happen.
All of us at 2 News are standing with Utahns to help keep our roads safe.
I'm in the driver's seat of a car, and the car's in drive. I'm seat belted in, and now somebody's starting to swing.
We're dedicating the next hour to the dangerous issue of road rage across our state.
There is no road rage type citation to give somebody.
I think that we need to make sure that the law is providing a proper incentive for people to do the right thing.
We're working to uncover the growing problems of road rage, and we're asking the question, what can be done to help keep you safe and hold people accountable? Well, just last year, Utah was voted by Forbes to be the worst state in the country when it comes to dealing with aggressive drivers. Thanks for joining us on 2 News at 4 o'clock for an hour-long special dedicated to taking a deeper dive into road rage issues here in Utah. I'm Jim Spiewak.
And I'm Jamie McGriff. We will be speaking to those directly impacted by road rage, lawmakers and officials out on our roads to see what can be done to keep you safe on the roads. We know that there is an increasing problem with 2 separate incidents involving death and injury happening just last week. But since the state does not keep any official record of road rage incidents, investigative reporter Darby Sparks researched recordings of these events over the last year and a half, and she has those details now. Darby.
Jim, Jamie, from my research, I found there have been at least 30 road rage involved incidents since last January, and most of them involve threats with a firearm. But you may be surprised at what causes it. Court documents say provocation makes an incident turn from aggressive to deadly.
Next time you get frustrated on the road, you may want to think twice before showing it. Court records show that aggressive drivers admit to becoming violent once they're provoked. 7 incidents out of 30 report to have been started by provocation from the victim of a road rage crime, with flipping someone off being most commonly reported. One well-known situation where this happened involved Rodrigo Monroy, who fatally shot Christopher Mortensen last October after claiming Mortensen started to shout obscenities and make obscene gestures after Monroy cut him off. Police reports also show that drivers are most likely to get into a confrontation on or near freeways. Interstate 15 is the most common place these incidents have occurred for the last year and a half. Areas within Salt Lake City and Sandy show to have more incidents of roadway aggression than any other city in Utah. Highways and exit ramps near both cities have had the most cases. Furthermore, road rage incidents are almost always caused by a male driver. Only 1 female is reported to have been charged with road rage-induced assault over the last year and a half, while 29 males are responsible. While there are no specific demographics within the category of someone who commits an assault from road rage, 8 of the aggressors were reported to have prior records of assaults and traffic violations.
In the past year and a half, incidents of road rage and aggression have more than doubled. We have that information and all the data available on our website. And in our town hall, we'll discuss how lawmakers plan to deal with the problem of growing aggression and why it's happening. For 2 News Investigates in Salt Lake City, I'm Darby Sparks.
All right, thanks, Darby. So police say that the best way to avoid a road rage incident, if you can, is to create distance between yourself and the aggressive driver. Do not provoke any situation, and if you cannot do that, call the local police or dispatch for immediate help.
Continuing our coverage, the Utah Department of Public Safety announced that they arrested a reckless motorcyclist after a 3-week search.
Quite an extensive search there. Heidi Hatch is joining us over on the live desk with some brand new footage that we just got into the newsroom. Heidi.
That's right. Let's take a look at it. DPS releasing aerial footage from the department's helicopter as it was monitoring the motorcycle. This was May 21st. So check it out. You can see the motorcyclist speeding through the streets here. The suspect has been identified as 42-year-old Richard Goulet of Magna. DPS says they tried to stop the driver on Trappers Loop instead of pulling over, though. This motorcyclist fled, clocked at speeds then of 138 miles an hour. Goulet has been booked now into the Weber County Jail coming up at 4:30. Jim and Jamie are going to sit down with the UHP's Colonel Michael Rapich to talk and discuss road rage and how it's impacting Utah streets, but 138 miles an hour.
Wow, incredible video there. Thank you very much, Heidi. So continuing our coverage this afternoon, violent cases of road rage are sparking new attention around our state laws.
Happening today, lawmakers holding a special session at the Capitol today, taking a look at other states and how they compare to Utah. Are laws now tough enough? Are they thorough enough? Brian Malahy is live at the Capitol today. A sense of urgency about this, Brian.
Well, it depends on how you look at it. I mean, there may be a bill coming here at the state capitol addressing road rage, but lots of talk today about studying it. Now, road rage cases seem to be mounting. They have been heartbreaking. They have been high profile, but with no definition of road rage in state law, UHP Colonel Mike Rapich says data on it, while concerning, is incomplete.
Roughly 700 to 800 crashes a year have been identified where road rage or aggressive driving was identified as a significant contributing factor. And then really even more than that, you'll see that in the last 3 years, there's been a significant spike in the number of fatalities.
Colonel Mike Rapich testifying in his today at the Transportation Committee hearing. This is an interim committee, so not directly connected to the special session. The Department of Public Safety put together numbers on aggressive driving crashes, but even Rapich said this was a very quick look and says there needs to be a deeper dive into road rage. And about that survey from Forbes that said, well, we're #1 in road rage, Colonel Rapich says he doesn't know if that's true. This apparently was a survey in states across the country. The survey sample did not seem to be extremely large, so whether or not Utah is #1 or somewhere down the list, no one really seems to know. Coming up on 2 News at 4:30, a prosecutor's perspective for you, live at the Capitol. Brian Malahy, KUTV 2 News.
All right, Brian, thank you. What solutions are being looked at by our top officials? We're going to be taking a closer look at the concerns and also questions to our local legislators.
Also coming up in just a few minutes, we're going to speak with some people whose families were so closely impacted by a recent fatal road rage incident. We're going to hear from them coming up in just a few minutes. It was a road rage incident that left 2 innocent people dead.
UHP says that they had no chance, and all because of something that they were not involved in.
Yeah, we're joined by friends and family of the victims of the Eagle Mountain road rage crash, Wes Howell and Peter Salm, hoping to bring something positive from what turned into a terrible tragedy. Peter, we've been friends for 12, 13, 14 years. I don't want to date us. I don't want to date us.
Understood.
Now, I know you're planning a funeral for this weekend. You've had time to digest everything that's happened. Tell us a little bit about your brother and about Misha.
You know, they were just loving life. My brother had lost his daughter some years ago, and he'd basically just getting rebounded from that. He had just taken over the family business, and he was just as happy as could be, and he was doing a great job at our shop. And his loss has really wrenched our hearts out, because it's, you know, he was so involved in all of our lives. He was a prankster, a joker. He would play gags on people, very sincere, was interested in everybody. So he's sorely missed. We, our company, you know, we've done a lot of really amazing things over the years. We've got components on the James Webb Telescope. We did the drill bits that went down and saved some of the Chilean miners that were underground years ago, and he was involved in all of that.
And he was running the company now, or was running the company.
Yeah, he and my sister were just taking over the company, kind of the next generation coming in and taking it over. So we're really proud of him.
Now, before we get to Wes, I just wanted to mention you were actually in Eagle Mountain driving on that same road at about the same time as the crash, just by coincidence.
Yeah, it wasn't at the same time as the crash, but it was after the fact. My wife and I decided to go for a ride, and we got out to Eagle Mountain, and there was a blockade, wouldn't let us drive any farther. And so I asked the gal on the side of the road what happened, and she said, I think there was a fatality. And I go, oh, that's too bad. And so we turned back around, and we were driving down Utah Lake, and we were about a half hour down towards the end of Utah Lake when my dad called me up in tears and said, Rodney's been killed. And we were just, I mean, it's a gut punch. You don't know how to react. And after that, we were driving back, and all of a sudden, my wife and I both thought, was Misha with him? Because they were inseparable, you know. Mm-hmm. I mean, initially you're thinking Rodney, but all of a sudden Misha's name popped into our heads. And by the time we got back to my dad's place, my sister had sent us a text and said Misha was with him, and she was also killed. So it was just really devastating.
Terrible tragedy.
I'm so sorry about all of this, and even just to piece together the scenes that you drove past, and That's
Yeah.
just so heartbreaking.
Yeah, you could look down the road about a half a
Oh.
mile and we saw all the police vehicles.
Oh, my
and,
goodness.
you know, but again, we weren't close enough to see what had happened. And actually, Wes was probably closer to the scene than I was because he was part of the group that was driving.
Yeah, Wes, what do you remember about those moments and being close to that? You were in a caravan with other folks, just out for your drive at the time, correct?
Yeah, we had met up that morning and doing what car guys often do. We start in a parking lot and we talk about car stuff and projects and families. And you know, that was something that we had enjoyed and everybody had spent some time. There were numerous people that had some very memorable conversations with Rodney, talking about Rodney's passions and Rodney's projects. And around noon, we decided to take off and we were going to head out west. So we headed down around towards the Lehigh area, and then we headed out through towards 5 Mile on 73, that road. And there was a caravan. The immediate caravan was 15 to 20 vehicles, and I was in the front of that caravan. So some of us towards the front had noticed the craziness in the oncoming lane, where there's one lane and there was 2 vehicles, and immediately we knew something major was wrong. In the front, it wasn't immediately apparent to me what had happened until there was a phone call, and then we all pulled over to the side of the road and we found out what had happened. Of course, there were people in our group that were in the middle of that tragic event and that saw some extremely traumatic things, and they're still dealing with those things. Sure. Just an absolutely sad, tragic event that just happened seemingly out of the blue on a day when we were just out to go out for a little bit of a cruise.
So Wes, what is the Road Rage Action Fund and how can people get involved? You're getting involved. You want to see
Yep.
some changes.
Absolutely. I think ultimately, as we're working on a message for the public, that's going to involve media. That's also going to involve events. And I think there'll be a lot of opportunities where we can essentially just get people to step back for a minute and think. I think as a community, this is something that we're all experiencing more and more. I think that people are going to talk about that a little bit more. But we'd like to raise awareness. We'd like to get people to think about this a little bit more. And we've got a lot of different ideas. One of those is also going to be pursuing things we can do with legislation and how we can help to promote those types of conversations. And I know that some will be talking about that on the show as well.
What are some of the specifics that you want to see with legislation? Because, you know, broad strokes can be made, but are there targeted actions that you want to see happen?
I think many of those conversations are just starting, and I think there's a lot of work that can be done in that area. With everything that's happened this week, that's not something that I've had a chance to dive into the details with yet, but I've certainly planned to.
Can they still donate to the fund?
Absolutely. Yeah, we do have a GoFundMe page, and every dollar of that will be spent according to the wishes of the families, and we'll be looking forward to using that money to make an impact that'll benefit the community.
And Pete, what would you say are Rodney and Misha's legacy?
You know, they were just loved by so many people, and obviously Rodney in our business, you know, that's been a real impact. All our customers are impacted, and you know, he's going to be remembered for just being the happy guy that he was. You know, like I say, he'd gone through a lot of things, and he genuinely was enjoying his life right now. I mean, he's about as happy as I've ever seen him, and I kind of like to remember him that way.
That's,
you know?
that's a good thing. Hey, before we go, we only got a few seconds. I just wanted to let you know, there's 15 states that have aggressive driving bills, and so they can actually increase charges against aggressive driving. We are not one of those states, so you've got some work to do, Wes.
Yeah.
You've got some work to do. Guys, thanks for joining us. I know this has been tough. I know
Thank
you're
you.
still planning
Appreciate
a funeral. Pete's always good to see you. And Wes, appreciate what you're doing to try to get the word out
My pleasure.
and affect some change. Thank you.
Thank you for being here, both of you. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you very
Sorry
much.
for your loss.
Yes.
Appreciate it.
And something to note here, West helped to set up a GoFundMe for their Road Rage Action Fund in honor of Rodney Salm. And you can find the link on our website, KUTV.com. And so far it has raised more than $22,000. Still ahead on 2 News at 4 as we continue our Road Rage Town Hall coverage. What's being discussed at the Capitol about road rage and what solutions are being looked at. We speak with a Utah lawmaker just ahead.
Welcome back into 2 News at 4 o'clock. We're continuing our road rage town hall this afternoon with what's being discussed up at the state capitol about the issue of road rage and what solutions, if any, are being looked at.
Brian Schnee is joining us now after having that conversation with one of our elected officials, and he's joining us now.
Jamie and Jim, I sat down with Senator Todd Weiler yesterday afternoon to talk about road rage legislation and things being looked into when it comes to the frequency of these heart-wrenching crashes that can result in lives lost. It looks like Utah's trying to discuss or look towards some sort of an aggressive driving statute, which is consistent in some other states. Are you in support of something like this?
Yeah, I mean, look at aggressive driving is already illegal, but we don't have a category just for road rage. So I think we're looking at just adding that category, but cutting people off, speeding, obscene gestures, whatever, all of those things are already distracted driving, or, all of those things are already illegal. And it's hard to make something double illegal, but it seems like we're getting more and more incidents of road rage, so we need to address that head on.
Well, with all of this happening right now, recently, some, heart-wrenching incidents of its own, would we wait to February for something like this? Would it involve another special session? That would be yet another one. Does this wait?
It's probably too early to say that. Special sessions are, I know we've had one last month, we're having one this month, but they're usually unique creatures. Policy decisions like this typically are done and addressed in a general session, so I can't predict the future on that. But I will tell you, whenever 2 innocent people lose their lives through by something that makes no sense, that shouldn't have happened, that definitely gets my attention. I think it gets every legislator's attention.
By that, you're referencing something very recent here in Eagle Mountain. The charges against that individual are manslaughter, and then there's this reckless driving charge. It's a Class B misdemeanor. Should that charge in itself be looked at differently, because it is involved with so many other charges typically when you're looking at one of these instances of road rage?
Yeah, it seems like it should, right? We only have about 7 classifications of crime, and that's from infraction all the way up to like first-degree murder. And so sometimes, when you only have those 5 categories in between, sometimes you look at things and you're like, well, are those 2 really equal? But I think, whenever you have 2 innocent people die, you got to start asking those hard questions. So I'm currently researching what other states are doing. I'm trying to get some actual data from the UHP. Because I don't want to fall victim to something like Shark Week. If we're just talking about road rage because it's on people's minds, it's not like sharks just attack during Shark Week, but that gets everybody's attention for 1 week of the year. And so I think that the legislature would prefer to make data-driven decisions.
You're talking about it again coming up here, but the last time we found that there was a real big discussion on aggressive driving, reckless driving, was back in a transportation committee meeting in 1999.
Yeah, that's a long time
ago. Did it really
ago.
take 24 years to have this discussion again? There's been plenty of deaths on our roads related to something like this.
And let's be clear, we talk about traffic issues, we talk about transportation issues, we talk about criminal justice issues all the time, but it may not be on an agenda as road rage or whatever. But and I want to emphasize the person who committed this crime, who took the lives of these 2 people, they are facing criminal charges. So it's not as if this isn't illegal now and we need to make it illegal. I think we need to revisit the issue and tweak it and maybe have a separate category just for road rage, because it seems like for whatever reason people are losing it more often, losing their temper, losing their patience behind the wheel.
Senator, you mentioned doing some research on this. So have you looked into busier roads, overcrowded roads as a potential contributor to maybe perhaps a frequency of these instances?
I haven't focused on that, but I will tell you, I think part of the problem is when you are going 80 miles an hour, these are split seconds decisions, and I think people underestimate the fact that they're driving a vehicle that may be 5,000 or 10,000 pounds at 80 miles an hour, and I think a lot of times these situations unravel and go out of control, in a matter of 2 or 3 seconds, and I think part of that is better educating people, as to how lethal and how dangerous these situations are. I think some people just want to, show another driver who's boss, or show them I'm not going to let you get in front of me or whatever. All of it is petty until someone dies, and then it becomes criminal, and So I don't want to have a knee-jerk reaction, but I do think we need to have an appropriate reaction, because it seems, you know, when innocent people are dying, we have to react to that.
An insightful conversation. We also spoke about anger management, other potential educational solutions for drivers, also distracted driving and the impacts of what's going on at home or in your personal life and how it relates to those split-second decisions while behind the wheel. Live in studio, Brian Schnee, KUTV 2 News.
Utahns are telling us their road rage stories, what they're saying about drivers like you and me.
And coming up, over 50% of Utah drivers have experienced rude gestures on the roads. We're going to speak with UDOT about what they're seeing.
Welcome back, everyone. From rude gestures to accidents on the roads, what are Utahns seeing when they actually go out on these roads?
Yeah, it seems like they're seeing quite a bit out there these days. Paul Nelson is joining us live. He actually talked with some drivers about what they are seeing while out on Utah roads. Paul, what do they have to say?
Well, before we get to those stories, I want to show you, if we're talking about aggravating factors on the roads, check this out. This is southbound I-15. We are in Murray, and we are going about, 21 miles an hour right now. So traffic got really heavy here, and that's just one of the things that are frustrating a whole lot of other people. Now, we are hearing, people are telling us stories about high-speed chases, shouting matches, even threats of fist fight, all because of people losing control of their tempers on the roads. Some people we spoke with say that they always try to distance themselves from angry drivers, but others, they admit they egg other drivers on when they seem aggravated, especially if that other driver is following too closely. But several drivers told 2 News they've seen people get hurt from road rage cases when the best solution would have been to just let it go.
I just graduated high school, so I've seen my fair share of neighborhood car chases because somebody threw a water balloon at you.
A couple cars were stopped at a stoplight, and the guy in the car behind got out to fight the guy in the car in front.
When 2 News conducted a live poll asking drivers what they believe is the biggest factor behind road rage, and believe it or not, cases like this with heavy traffic, that wasn't the highest on the list. About half said bad drivers are the main factor, while others say it's high levels of stress. But the people that we spoke with say many Utah drivers seem too wrapped up in their own schedules and in their own lives instead of actually taking a look out for the other people on the roads. Reporting live, Paul Nelson, KUTV 2 News.
Paul, thank you so much. We want to hear from you at home. What do you believe is the main reason for road rage on Utah streets? You can grab your phone right now and scan the QR code to weigh in. And as we've been talking about all hour long, we have been seeing more acts of road rage on Utah streets. In the last year, 50% of Utah drivers have experienced a rude or offensive gesture.
And also, further 75% of drivers say they've at least been honked at. I guess when you talk about road rage, it kind of starts with some of those, what some people might think are smaller things like gestures or honking the horn. We're joined now by John Gleason. He's the communications director for the Utah Department of Transportation. Thanks for taking a few minutes with us. So, from UDOT's perspective, you don't make the laws, you don't enforce the laws, that's for law enforcement, but you do maintain and oversee a lot of all the state roadways. I guess first and foremost, what is UDOT seeing while people are out and about on the roads these days?
I think you mentioned it. We're seeing more incidents of aggressive driving and road rage type situations that have really kind of spiked in the last 3 years or so. And you can look at the things that are happening in the world around us, and I think it's a connection between what we're seeing out on the roads, what people are feeling in their personal lives, what they're seeing out in the world, and they sometimes. I don't think it's a stretch to say that they can take some of those emotions out on the road.
And these are split-second decisions. We were just kind of talking about that. Split-second decisions can lead to someone dying, though, as we've seen a lot of, it seems like, recently.
Absolutely, and really we all have to look in the mirror and check ourselves before we get out on the road and say, I'm going to choose a better reaction, okay? There's always going to be somebody who gestures or who honks their horn or cuts you off. The key is not to escalate it. Just, don't feed into that and choose a better reaction, because we've seen, these terrible consequences of when people make bad decisions behind the wheel.
I guess we could say that this is a form of impatience times 1,000.
Absolutely.
From the beginning and then to the end, it just turns ugly.
Well, I think it's these emotions that just kind of swallow us up in the moment, and people are choosing rage. They're choosing this big emotion, and we really have to be comfortable with driving calm, and that's really the message that we're trying to get out there with the Zero Fatalities program. We're out there in the schools trying to do these parent nights we did 375 over the last year. We're trying to create great drivers from the start, and if we can get that message out to the younger drivers and to people that are out there driving every day, this is probably the most dangerous thing most of us will do every day is drive our vehicles, and we take it for granted. We need to remember that if we're making poor decisions behind the wheel, the results can be deadly.
And UDOT oversees the incident management folks, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, so these incident management folks, they're out on the highways and these state roads helping people that are on the side of the road. Are they talking to you about seeing, more aggressive drivers out there, closer calls, things like that? Because those incident management folks are right in there. Absolutely, and anecdotally, you can see it on your own. I mean, I was driving just somewhere yesterday, and there were two people honking at each other, and we work very closely with UHP, our partners at the Utah Highway Patrol, and they'll be out here to kind of talk about some of the incidents that they've seen. But I think in general, we're seeing more aggressive driving behaviors, and it's very troubling. Yeah. Okay, John Gleason, Communications Director for UDOT, thanks very much for giving some context and perspective from the seat that you all sit in. Thanks again. Appreciate
Thanks so much.
Okay.
Well, Ogden police have given an update in involved shooting Tuesday, an update in the police-involved shooting that happened Tuesday morning, resulting in the death of a suspect. We're going to have the latest from officials. That's just ahead.
We'll go back to 2 News at 4 o'clock. Let's get you caught up on some of today's top headlines. A suspect died in an officer-involved shooting. This happened in Ogden Tuesday morning. Police gave an update just about 10 minutes ago about the investigation. You can watch that full stream of the update over on our website. And this marks the second officer-involved shooting in the city within a week.
Authorities say a man wanted in a Michigan homicide investigation over a decade ago was last seen in northern Utah. Michigan police asked the Utah State Bureau of Investigation to assist locating Chadwick Shane Mobley. Mobley is known to be armed and driving a white Chevy pickup.
A 2 News exclusive investigation is getting some results after two victims were terrified that their attacker could be paroled from prison well over a decade early. Our investigation into the Board of Pardons and parole handling of attempted murder Val Santra Romana provoked outrage after we exposed a mistake made by the board.
A Colorado mother says a body found last Saturday in the Jordan Surplus Canal is her 22-year-old son, Tyler Svetich. Police confirmed the identity this morning. Tyler disappeared in mid-May.
Still to come on 2 News at 4 o'clock, we're going to speak with the Utah Highway Patrol about ways they plan to keep you safe on the roads.
Coming up on 2 News at 5, domestic violence, a big problem in Utah. One lawmaker pitches her approach as a good way to help victims, but why others disagree.
Welcome back to 2 News at 4 o'clock for our hour-long Road Rage Town Hall special. We are asking local officials today about how they plan to keep you safe on the roads after 3 tragic road rage cases in Utah County in just a matter of weeks.
And now the county attorney's office says that more could be done to try to stop it. Brian Malahy is live at the Capitol today. And Brian, what exactly do prosecutors have in mind?
These are the ideas. Maybe a public information campaign to try to keep people safe if they're confronted by road ragers. Maybe tougher penalties for bad driving in the state. Maybe a new state law. Right now, Utah has a law against reckless driving, as we've mentioned, but not road rage specifically.
Until we define road rage, it's difficult to quantify how much is going on within our community.
The state needs to define road rage.
Yes, I believe so.
Chad Grunander with the Utah County Attorney's Office. New numbers from the State Department of Public Safety show aggressive driving led to 8 deaths in 2019, but 28 deaths last year. Those numbers also show that the accidents related to aggressive driving, the crashes, have really not gone up in the last 6 years. So some disparity in the numbers. Right now, reckless driving in Utah is a Class B misdemeanor. That means up to 6 months in jail and up to a $1,000 fine. More coming up on 2 News at 5 o'clock. We're talking education then. Live at the Capitol, Brian Malahy, KUTV 2 News.
Brian, thank you. As we continue our road rage town hall coverage this afternoon.
Yeah, we're going to join back up with Brian Schnee, who is joining us after sitting down with Senator Todd Wiley. We have a little bit more of your discussion with the senator.
Jamie and Jim, you may remember we left off discussing the recent deadly crashes on our roads, which involve road rage as a contributing factor. Senator Weiler felt that more people perhaps taking public transportation could be a small part of a solution there, but there's an overarching message here.
I think we just need people to chill out and take a deep breath and realize that life is worth preserving, and sometimes we don't have to react if somebody flips us off or cuts us off on the road. And I think we just need everyone to take a chill pill and just be responsible citizens.
On that very subject, some studies have suggested anger management, de-escalation training, if you will, in driver's education. Would that be worthwhile here in Utah?
I certainly think it should be on the table. I think that sounds like that sounds like where we need to go. And part of the problem is people take driver's ed when they're 15 or 16 years old, and a lot of the people engaged in these road rage incidents, that's 30 or 40 years later. And so maybe we need a refresher course. I don't know.
What else can be done right now?
I think that we need to make sure that the law is providing a proper incentive for people to do the right thing, people to do what they already know is right. But I think a lot of people, they're not thinking out the entire process, that if they do what they do, it could cost someone else their life, and it could cost them their life as well if they're going to spend several years behind bars. We did make it illegal a number of years ago to be, I think what that says is manipulating your cell phone. So we still allow people to use it as a GPS device as long as they're not typing it in. But distracted driving can be everything. I see people shaving. I see people eating bowls of cereal. I see women putting on makeup. I see, there's sometimes children in the back seat. You're reaching back, because distracted driving can happen in 100 different forms. It is already illegal. So I guess the question is, is it more of a public education issue, or do we need to strengthen the penalties? Because quite frankly, if somebody makes, a split-second decision, should that affect the rest of their lives? And yeah, it probably should in some decisions if they've taken somebody's life, but it's hard to know where to draw those lines, because we don't want to live in this, police gotcha state where, we're just catching people, for that 1 second of their day where they do something wrong, and then and then they're in jail for 5 years or something like that. So I think we have to be careful. But I think just like we're more water conscious today than maybe we were 5 or 10 years ago because of the Great Salt Lake, I hope that we're more conscientious about the dangers of distracted driving today than we were 5 or 10 years ago. And so I think education's a big component of that.
Senator Weiler stressed that something like this being discussed in the Transportation Interim Committee is a good step. Would he like to see it move faster? Sure, but the overall message here from Senator Weiler is we need everyone to be responsible on the road and don't react to others that are trying to provoke criminal activity while behind the wheel. Brian Schnee, KUTV 2 News.
Okay, thank you, Brian. So Utah tops the nation in the number of road rage incidents. That's according to a Forbes survey, and 700 to 800 crashes a year are related to road rage incidents.
So how is Utah responding to the number of road rage incidents that have taken place? We just heard some possible solutions from Senator Weiler, including transportation options and ways to de-escalate on the roads.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and bring in Utah Highway Patrol Colonel Michael Rapich. That's going to join us. Thank you very much, Colonel, for taking a few minutes to speak with us today. You were up on the Hill speaking in front of lawmakers a little bit earlier today. Just real quickly recap what you said up there, and did you like what you had to hear from others that were speaking as well?
Sure, absolutely. Thanks for having us on today. Yeah, the legislature today. So earlier last week, we were asked by the Transportation Committee to actually come up and present some information on what we could actually give them to help scope this issue as far as road rage and what we're seeing and the instances. One of the things we talked about was when you're talking about road rage, that's not something that's statutorily defined as a crime. Yeah. What road rage is a series of traffic violations and even criminal violations that in totality end up what we see out on the roadways. It could be anything from really, really aggressive and dangerous driving behavior directed at another person, up to including shootings on the freeway. And all of the things that lead up to that. You know, we have statutes and laws that address what's actually happening with that. Reckless driving laws, we have careless driving laws, we have speeding laws, we have all of these things that are, as far as the traffic portion of that leads into what ultimately can become road rage. We've got good statutes on that. We started talking about what does road rage mean and what does aggressive driving mean. A lot of other states have defined aggressive driving. I think our reckless driving statute mirrors a lot of what other states are using as far as aggressive driving, but we haven't actually seen where there's definitions for road rage when it comes to crash reporting. NHTSA has provided some information as far as what kind of circumstances would constitute aggressive driving or road rage, and our officers, when they're investigating a crash and they're looking at the totality of the information they have, they can make a determination that this, based on the definitions that provided there, this crash was contributed to by road rage. We provided some of that information in the legislature today. Roughly 700 to 800 crashes a year have an officer that makes the determination that it's either aggressive driving or road rage. Go ahead.
I'm sure that you have, with your line of work, what you do, what you oversee, I'm sure there's that fear every time that you hear about a road rage incident or even a crash. Is this somebody that you know?
Sure. So that's actually a big difference, but difference between the ones that you hear and actually get reported, as versus the ones where actually have an opportunity to take advantage, take action on where there's an enforcement action, far exceeds the number that get reported where someone sees an action or they're involved in an action and they report that to a 911 dispatch center, and the difference between when we actually have an opportunity to interact with that person, actually bring to a stop, separate the two parties, figure out what happens, and actually file charges that are appropriate. I think every single one of us, and the more you talk about that, everyone has experienced what they believe to be a road rage incident. That might be someone just with gestures and honking and screaming or aggressive driving maneuvers, up until we say include people actually in physical confrontations and assaults and even shootings or brandishings of firearms on the freeway. And what starts with that? I mean, all of those things start with driving behaviors. And it starts with being overly aggressive or being getting into a sequence of events or a sequence of actions where we lose control of our emotions. We lose control of our ability to make common sense decisions. We get into a situation where we're doing things we wouldn't do in any other case, and we actually lose that ability to be conscious of the safety and the awareness and the courtesy and the way we would interact with people in any other circumstance other than in a vehicle in that situation.
Yeah, it's so dangerous too, many times, as we've seen in recent memory. So Colonel Rapich, thank you very much for taking a few minutes to talk through this with us today.
Absolutely.
We appreciate your time. Absolutely. Okay. So still ahead on 2 News at 4:30, we are going to speak again with the families that were directly impacted by some tragic road rage incidents within just the last 10 days.
Hi, everybody. We are wrapping up our road rage town hall coverage this afternoon. Thank you for joining us for 2 News at 4:30. Joined again by Wes Howell and Peter Salm. You have been impacted by road rage here on Utah streets, and our condolences to you.
Thank you very much.
For your incredible loss, and we thank you for your work in spreading awareness about road rage and the ways in which people can prevent it from happening. From all that have been discussed over the course of this hour, what are your thoughts? How are you feeling? What do you want drivers to know?
Well, I think it's very obvious that 10, 15 seconds of inattention can lead to catastrophic results. The individuals involved in our personal situation were focused on each other, and they were doing all kinds of antics on the road back and forth, from what I understand, and it resulted in the death of 2 beautiful people who didn't deserve what happened to them. I think people need to just be aware of the fact that your actions when you're becoming aggressive, when you're using your vehicle as a weapon, it's never going to be a good result, and there's just no positive that comes from it. And if these people just said, let it go, forget about it, the next day they wouldn't have even remembered the situation, and they'd be with their families and they'd be doing all the things that they want to be doing.
And to that point, Wes, what do you think people should be asking themselves as they step into a car these days?
Yeah, I think to follow up on what Peter was saying, I think it's an opportunity for all of us to reflect a little bit and to think about how do we feel and how are we acting when we get in our vehicles? What is the mentality? Are we impatient? Are we viewing people as being obstacles? Are we feeling aggressive? And I think we also have an opportunity to reflect on how we react to other people's actions. And, I think we all need to think about, do we really want to go there? These tragedies do occur and lives are changed, then it's just simply not worth it. Last quick thought, I had a friend of mine that mentioned, he said, sometimes I remind myself that could be my grandma, that could be my family member. Yeah. So I think we can all be a little more thoughtful, a little more patient, a little bit more compassionate. I think that'd go a long way.
Well said. Wes and Peter, thank you again for a few moments.
Yes.
Again,
so
sorry for your loss. Our condolences to you and your family. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so that kind of wraps up our coverage. We want to thank everyone for joining us for our hour-long town hall focusing on how road rage is really impacting Utahns, not only here in the Salt Lake Valley, but all across the state. You can see all of our previous interviews and coverage by heading on over to our website, KUTV.com, or our KUTV mobile app. 2 News is committed to staying on top of how our leaders are working hard to try to keep everyone safe on the roadways. That's going to do it for 2 News at 4 o'clock. Don't go anywhere, though. Mark and Heidi have more of today's top stories on KUTV 2 News at 5, which starts right now.